Hey Ryan, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Hey, the run defense on Saturday, we haven't really seen a game like that out of you guys in a couple of weeks. What maybe was the what went wrong there a little bit?
A lot of things. Obviously, there's not any one area when you give up the yardage that we did. Sometimes it was misfits. Sometimes it was just playing with improper technique, and sometimes they made a play and broke a tackle and was able to get some more yards. So definitely got to shore up the run game. Make sure that we got the proper matchups out there and schematically are doing the things that are advantageous to getting us in the right spot to be able to stop the run.
What's the most important part of this open week for you guys as a defense?
Just to continue to improve, really focusing on the fundamentals and techniques of playing good defense, getting on and off blocks, making tackles and leveraging the football properly, proper footwork and coverage. Just going back to the basics and improving as football players, not just defensively or schematically.
Thanks, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Hey Ryan, I guess I'm just curious maybe how you look at that Wisconsin game where you get a couple turnovers, both with Kirby but then Wisconsin has the ball for 43 minutes. Just what's the bigger picture view of maybe that game?
It was the fact we couldn't get off the field. Like you just alluded to the time of possession. Obviously we love the two turnovers, but at the same time, in games like that where early that they're sort of what they wanted to do was run the football and maintain possession and keep us on the field. So when you have opportunities on third down to get off the field, you got to take advantage of those. We got at the second half, it just looked like we were tired at times. And that happens, I think they ran the ball for over. We got to be better. Got to be better there for sure.
Just with Kirby, 2 more takeaways, 6 in the last 5 games. Have you had a player go on maybe that kind of run like that before?
Not at the safety spot. We had a guy named Kel Garrett at Missouri who through 4.5 games had like something crazy, like 3 touchdowns and 3 picks and a couple forced fumbles. So yeah, he is on a good run. Hopefully we keep it going, and he's still got a lot of areas to improve. So I'm happy with his growth, but he's still got a lot of potential.
I guess just maybe one follow-up on Kirby, just to have him in that free safety spot, maybe the last line of defense, and just to have been as consistent as he's been over the last few games. What does that do for your defense overall?
It helps. Obviously, the turnovers are huge. It gets you off the field and puts the ball back in the offense's hand. But just him being able to roam back there and get people down as well, it can limit explosive plays and limit the home run, either passes or runs that offenses can create. So he's like I said, he's been doing a good job in the post, and he can continue to improve and get better.
Thank you.
Hey, Coach. Obviously, Jake went out again. How do you feel like the other guys stepped up, particularly like Tariq Barnes? I know I believe he had the forced fumble, and he's been pretty consistent. It seems like in that, I guess, stepping into that role.
Yeah, those, Jake had been out, for the last couple of games, and so, there wasn't necessarily a drop off for guys that hadn't played before. So those, Coach Boo does a good job of cross training those guys, play Mike or Will. And obviously hate to see that happen to Jake. He's been a pillar of the program, since he stepped foot on campus, and has been great in the locker room and has played great football for us when he's been available. So hate to see that for him and his family. It's the nature of the game sometimes, and for us as a unit, it's got to be next man up mentality, and having Jake's back that way and playing up to our standards. And so, those guys, like I said, they've got a lot of playing experience here lately because Jake's been out. And so it's just another opportunity for them to get more reps, get more experience, and try to put us in position to help us win games.
Ryan, I know you said you're working this week on fundamentals, but at least for you as coaching staff, are you already game planning for Penn State, starting that scheme, or do you kind of wait until next week for that?
You start taking a peek at it. Start doing some early scouting. You also do some self scouting during the bye week, just to assess where we are defensively. What our tendencies are, where we can improve, and then obviously get a jump start on the Penn State.
And I know you weren't happy with Wisconsin, the result, but you look at 4 straight games with 24 points or less allowed. Do you feel like that's given your team a chance to win from a defensive standpoint?
No, hadn't been enough. Just hasn't been enough. Obviously, the wins have not come from those performances, and that's our job, is to help us go win a game, and we haven't done that. Regardless of what the score is, that we haven't done enough defensively.
Hey, Ryan, Brett had talked after the game about using this week to maybe find ways to maximize the roster. It sounded like maybe that there could be a chance to see some younger guys. I know you've kind of tinkered around a little bit already, but what's that look like for you this week in terms of the balance of maybe seeing who else you have, but also understanding you still have 7 or 5 games left?
Yeah, like I said, we're going to do a lot of self scout and a lot of fundamental work in practice, and if that leads to a couple of roster moves or tweaks from a personnel standpoint, then that's what that means. I don't know what that means for the offense or special teams, right? But I just know for us defensively, through the self scout and through some evaluations in assessing where we can grow or get better, we'll adjust accordingly.
And I guess if I could, I know we've talked a lot about Kirby, but I know you've mentioned like this was a guy who was a wide receiver at times. And when did you identify that, hey, maybe this could be a guy that I could really work with to help take that step? And what does that specifically look like to get him to where he is?
Well, in the springtime, he's the same athlete he was a year ago. You know what I mean? So in the spring, I saw a long, rangy athlete that could get in and out of breaks, that had natural ball skills, just didn't necessarily know how to play the position. And so through reps and through countless meetings and questions, like he's a guy that asks a lot of questions, and you want that as a coach, right, to make sure that you're on the same page, and kind of honing in on specifics of what he needs to pay attention to. You started seeing a growth pattern there. And then he's just been a guy that hasn't been afraid to make a mistake. So that's allowed him to go make plays that other people aren't making, right, or hadn't made. So when you got a guy like that, you got to take advantage of it. And so he's been able to provide sparks for us, and obviously creating turnovers and limiting explosive plays. And so, like I said, and he's just learning. He's still learning the position and what that position means within the scheme of the defense. So, sky's the limit for Kirby as long as he continues to, remain humble and continue to work the way he's worked up to this point, because he's just scratching the surface from a potential standpoint.
Cool. Thanks, Ryan.
Hey, Coach, I kind of wanted to ask you about something you just said about Kirby. He's not afraid to make a mistake, and that's maybe allowed him to make plays that others maybe haven't. What is it about that mentality, or is that maybe, I guess, what you want your entire defense to adopt at some point here, not just maybe this season, but in the future?
Yeah, that's, I think it's someone asked me a similar question last week, just on how some guys can or how some guys can't. You pull the trigger, as I've said in the past. And some of it's innate, right? Some guys are just more aggressive than others. Some guys it's a learned habit. Sometimes it could be previous cultures or previous coaching staffs that react differently to mistakes being made or not being made. It could be a whole host of things that leads to a player either being aggressive or being hesitant. I'm always of the mindset, I'd much rather have to tell you to slow down than to speed up. And if your preparation has been done the right way and gone through the proper steps, and that should give you confidence and freedom to go out there and play fast and to be aggressive. And so I think, Kirby has allowed his preparation and his practice habits have allowed him to be confident, which in turn allows him to be aggressive and to react off of what he has seen on game days.
Are there other guys you feel like, I guess, have adopted that same mentality of pulling the trigger, not being afraid to make a mistake?
Yeah, I mean, I think Sidney Brown is another guy, specifically in my room, that pulls the trigger pretty frequently. Now he's playing a different position, so he's not in the same scenarios or situations that Kirby's in, but he's got that same, pull the trigger first, ask questions later mentality. And throughout the spring, it got him in trouble sometimes, and so you had to sort of, say, hey, in this call, you can't really do that, Sid. You know what I mean? But he's another guy that's been ultra productive for us. That is in the right spot at the right time and plays tough and physical, and because of his preparation, he's allowed to play free that way.
Thanks, Coach.
Coach,
Appreciate you.
Coach, you haven't got the results you want, but the defense has been better this year. The fans are asking, with Coach Bielema's background being as a defensive coach, what the dynamic there is between the two of you, and how much freedom he gives the coordinators, and how much input he has as the head coach on the defense.
Yeah, I think one thing that's been special about Coach B is he's not like a micromanager. Like he trusts in his hiring process. He trusts what he sees, and he has put together, specifically on our side of the ball, a lot of capable coaches. We've got Andy Boo was a play caller and spent a lot of time as a coordinator. Kevin Kane was just the defense coordinator at SMU, who has done a great job there. And then we've got young coaches, and Coach Jamison, who I believe will one day be a coordinator, and Coach Henry, who I believe will one day be a coordinator. So you got plenty of capable guys in there, and he's allowed us to go in there and go to work. Now, obviously, he's the head coach and he's got a defensive background. So if there are things that he sees that he doesn't like, or things that he sees that he feels like we can add to what we're doing, he's not afraid to voice those opinions. And as a staff, we'd be wise to take heed to his direction or his advice. And so it's been a great working environment that way. He's allowed us to sort of evolve throughout the season. And I think that as a result, we've gone through some improvements. Now, obviously there's going to be hiccups, down the road, and there's going to be plays that you want back. But he has done in my opinion, done a good job of balancing, being head coach and trusting your staff to do their jobs, and also, providing input and insight where he sees fit.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.